Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Raw Knuckles podcast. We'd really appreciate it if you'd like, subscribe, and share with a friend.
At the end of the day, we're entertainers. You know, we are entertainers, and
You guys
the
got
guys
like
back
wrestling
then
names,
kind of.
Fridge, Nux. You guys are like WWF guys, right? Like, yeah.
Well, there's characters, like true characters. The Grim Reaper. I mean, come on. We had
The
nicknames
Boogeyman.
When I stepped on the ice, I never backed down and I never stayed down.
And I was vicious, and I was malicious, and I don't care.
He's a freaking madman. Look at him going to town. That'll be a suspension. That'll be a fine.
Welcome to the show, Todd. Christ, I go back. I was telling Tim earlier, I love when I look guys up on Google. I Google them. And I love the names of Canadian hockey towns. And you, from Redwater, Alberta, like, hello. What a great, like, I played with Ron Gresham in New York, I was saying. And he's from Good Soil, Saskatchewan. Like, such good names for guys coming out of those towns. And you being from Redwater, what was it like growing up there? How'd you get into the hockey, local hockey rink, all that stuff? What was it like for you?
Well, I mean, small town. There's 2,000 to 2,500 people like in the town. Main Street is 2 blocks, and everybody played hockey, right? And it's cool because you play the other towns around you, right? And they're all within half an hour. Some are 45. If you go to big tournaments, it's almost 2-3 hours away. But that's kind of the teams are made up of the towns. There's no classing. It wasn't AAA. It was all, if you had enough players to play and make a team at that age level, then you had a team. So I didn't really get into trying out till like I was 13 or 14 and stuff. And then you go to the cities. But growing up for us, like all the dads on my my neighborhood, there was 3 rinks that they just put up with 2x4s, 2x6s in water. And then whoever had the lights would be the one that most of the guys would play at. And that's just what you did after school. In the winter, it gets dark at like 3 in Redwater, and there's nothing else to do. So you just play hockey all the time with the same crew, mix up the teams. And then the same thing goes into spring, and then in the summer, you're doing it in street hockey. So that's how I grew up, like literally just living and breathing and loving the game.
Is there anyone else in the NHL that came out of there?
Well, Kent Manderville actually, and I played with him my rookie year here.
I played against him in Finland, I think, at the end of his
career.
career.
He went overseas.
Yeah.
And he wasn't. I don't think he was born there. Like I was born in Redwater, and then I think his parents moved there or something, and then he spent some time there. But Kent Manderville was another guy. Yeah, no, it's small world, the hockey world.
Oh yeah. You weren't born in Ukraine? Someone said Nux said you were born in Ukraine.
No. My great grandfather, he came over. Onufri Fedoruk. Yeah, he was born in Ukraine.
You ever been?
No, I'd love to go. Not now, obviously, but I would have loved to go back to the homeland. Ukrainians are like, even my family, we're big with family and the earth, and we understand the breadbasket, right? Like, if you look at like my family came across, they broke ground, and whatever they had, that was theirs, and that's what the Canadian government was doing at that time. And the whole farm was in one area, and we had enough land that it produced basically every Fedoruk in Canada. And like, there's a lot of them. My grandfather, Joe Fedoruk, just passed this past year, 92 years old on the farm, and they built the church there and everything. So that we settled there, and everything came from that farm. So it's the homeland in Mundare, and that's where the farm is, and that's still where my father and his brothers all grew up. So that's what you get out west too. You get kids that just kind of walk hard. They know how to work when they're like 5 years old, because they're killing chickens and driving trucks on the farm. They're working. So you get a lot of that out west. It's a big farming community.
So big farming community, big farm boys. I don't know how many guys I play with that. I remember especially the Hunters. When I think back, Dale Hunter, Mark Hunter, and they always wanted to go far in the playoffs, because if they didn't go far in the playoffs, they had to go home and start working the land. I never had to deal with that, obviously, growing up in the city. So, but Todd, the hockey piece, right? You grow up there, you're playing. How about the fighting piece? Playing in those games as a young kid, did that ever cross your mind that you'd be this guy one day in the NHL who's going to go out there and protect his teammates?
Yeah, I know. I always reflect back on it. It's a hard question to answer, because I was always reckless and enjoyed like the physicalities of the game. And it just kind of happened, Yeah, I mean, I think you make a choice if you're going to do it. And I did it probably younger, and my first year junior, I really I'm going to try fighting.
Were you always big?
I wanted to try it.
Were you always kind of considered big?
Yeah, I was big when I was 13, 14. I think I was, one of the bigger guys, and always hanging out with older kids and stuff like that, because I was the same size as them, but played like big too, and was like ultra aggressive. And when they moved me up to forward at like 13, 14, then I was like, oh, you can hit so much more up here. And then I guess you had to start developing into that role player, power forward, whatnot. So yeah, but I always was I always had that edge in me. And I think it was junior with the Kelowna Rockets when it was the way the team was built too. Like there was a lot of tough guys, Dale Parrington, Jamie Butt, Sheldon Surrey was on those teams. And then we had, me and Scotty Parker were the two young kids in Kelowna. So it was like, we were tougher than all those guys. And it was a tough league back then. And it was, I don't know, it was a good time to be a fighter in the game at that time, because there was a lot of guys. Probert and Nux was playing at that time too. And these guys were playing and doing it the right way. And hockey was blowing up like in those years, man. And in those 90s and the 80s, late 80s and early 90s even into the 2000s, like that's when hockey, I feel, was at its best, right? Guys were kind of, the game was evolving and becoming more cerebral, but guys were still playing with that edge, and fighting was still a key role, and guys weren't getting hurt as much. You wouldn't mess around as much. And it was more exciting. You can't tell me that those games weren't exciting. You knew if Knox is coming into Boston or even in Philly, guys, people would just go oh, you should see what he did last game. Like people had a memory, and you were never let down, with the stories within the story, within the games back then. And I got to grow up watching all that stuff. And I remember Probert, Kosher, all those guys, Tony Twist.
And Domi,
I was
that would be huge. That was like a main event when they're, and I know what you mean. Nowadays,
yeah, that's when the media really got into the side of that game, and you know what, Proby just was the real deal, and Domi was smart enough to understand. Okay, there's something here, and this is New York, and. So you got to give them props. At the end of the day, we're entertainers. We are entertainers, and
you guys got wrestling names, Fridge, Nux. You guys are like WWF guys, right? Yeah.
Well, there's characters, true characters. The Grim Reaper. I mean, come on. We had
the Boogeyman.
Boogeyman, and these were obviously this guy. Well, yeah, he was the Boogeyman too. Geez, Boogs, God rest his soul. 272 pounds he played at, 6'7", so that makes him 7 feet on skates. I don't care. He was such a big guy, and he hit so hard. He got upset. He got I played with him for a bit, and I also ran into him, but he got upset when you asked him. He's he knew what he could do to you, man. That was a scary big boy.
Yeah, he was. And Fridge, now that I know I was a bad influence on you growing up, obviously, when did it become apparent to you, or you thought, because there's so many stories that we don't see, all right? The story of the young Canadian kid who plays junior hockey, his dream is the NHL, NHL, I'm making it, right? But the numbers are very small. When did it become apparent to you, or you had an idea that just maybe I can do this at the professional level?
I think it was probably when I started playing with guys like that were drafted, and then probably that's 18. Like getting drafted was obviously like, that's an eye opener. You're like, wow. I mean, even it was like, I think it was like the last 7th round or 6th round, but still getting chosen was like, okay, let's pick up the bootstraps and let's go after this and run with it. And that's probably when it really was like it was an achievable dream, right? Like that's like the first step of the plan on paper, right? Like it's the draft, and but I think that's when I started believing that it was an opportunity.
Now,
and then you chase it, obviously,
yeah,
right? Then you go after it with a little more vigor, and you have more resources, and the team kind of helps you out and like go train. I remember I was training with Norm Lacombe, never showed up, but I tried to train a lot, and these guys just shook their head at me every time I go train, you know. But anyways, I worked that way, and yeah, it was because they hooked me up with people that were NHL caliber players, and then you start getting into, you know, you get around the people, and then you become a certain way to become a professional. And, you know, I was luckily along the way, but that's when I started believing. It was probably at the draft, 18 years old.
And you came in with the mindset of like, you're going to fight and protect. And because, you know, you guys, like a George Peros, or, you know, we talked to Tanner Glass recently. These are guys from college, which, you know, you don't fight in college, and it's kind of like you got to make that decision on the spot. And, you know, I was tough in college, right? So, I mean, like everyone was tough. But for you, did you come in with the mindset of like, that's what I'm going to do?
I was under the impression that they loved it. You know, like they loved it. They loved not having to talk about it. And they loved the fact that this guy is just going to do it no matter what. We can't.
Like you were introducing yourself as the fridge at training camp. Like you were.
Well, no, that's just what everybody called me, because nobody knew who I was anyways. You know, I eventually, like when they called, that nickname stuck rookie year. Billy Barber loved it. Like, and it was just funny because the way I'm built, I'm like a barrel. Like it's, my shoulders and hips are the same. Like I'm literally like a rectangle. So he just loved it. And I'm Irish too. So I got that pale skin. So they like, you look like a Maytag fridge. And that's what stuck. That's how it stuck. And, like, everybody just knew me as Fridge. And even when I go to training camp, I don't think Hitchcock actually knew my name till halfway through the season. He kept calling me Feds. He didn't know my first name. He's like, I know your nickname's Fridge. What? And then halfway through, he's like, you know my name's Todd? And he's like, that doesn't matter. Hitchcock. Feds. Yeah.
So Philly, you drafted Philly, Hitchcock, you coached there, like, your first training camp, how was that, like, coming in there with that pressure of the past, the glorious past of the Broad Street Bullies? You're coming in and you got to make your mark. It's like, that's pretty intimidating, 18-year-old kid. What was that like coming into Philly?
Oh, it was cool because the teams back then, they'd bring you in when you're 18 or sometimes at the end of the season prior to. So I actually got to come in with Jesse Boulerice and a couple other, Simone Gagne, I think, might have came in. I'm not sure. But we went to the Phantoms, and we were in town already. But the first camp we actually did it in Peterborough. Roger Nielsen was the coach, and we'd go up there and we'd do like this big bike ride, or you do a run, or those are the things you'd have to do.
Did you learn how to do the trap with Roger?
No. I wasn't even doing that. This is the first camp. And then, but I remember like guys like Craig Berube, Hexie was one of the goaltenders, and then Lindros, Brendamore, Van Beesbrook was there, Svoboda. Like I remember those guys. And then you get the minor league guys. I had Frank the Animal Bialois.
Oh yeah,
like, he was one of the guys that just got brought in for the Phantoms. And characters, like total characters. And but they were good to the young guys. Like Chief, I remember Hexy just two-handing me in the back of the legs, and it hurt, man. Like, and I was kind of, you're scared. I'm 18 years old.
You
like, I'm
wanted to
still a
go
tough
after him,
guy.
but you couldn't.
I did. I totally did. I wanted to kill him because if you look at Hexy in the locker room, he's he looks like a coat hang, like, a T-shirt on a coat hanger. He's whitey, they say, but has some things loose up there. He's got a temper, which I love. But I go back to the bench, and he's like, Chief's on the bench, and he's like, don't take that shit. Go sit right in front of him again. I go and do it again. What the hell? Sure enough, Hexy. Twice as hard again. He's like, stay that, because I was screening him. I was just going to the front of the net. That's what you're supposed to do, right? And then I come back again, and Chief's laughing at me when I get back to the bench because I got two-handed big bumps on the back of my leg from Hexy. He was good with that stick. You probably had a few slashes yourself.
What was your first impression of Lindros? That guy, I mean, obviously, unfortunately, he had some injuries, but he was a beast.
Yeah, I remember him training, and it was like about all the records. Like, I hold the record for the row. I hold the record for pull-ups. I hold the record for the 3-mile run. Like, him and Brendan Moore were like maniacs training with stuff like that. Brendan Moore is a way cut above, though, but from a physical specimen, like, Lindros is like Superman. He was like, you walk in, he's a presence, like, big. And that time he was in the best shape of his life. I was 18. I think he was in his mid-20s. Prime, him and it was like the best time for Leclerc and Renberg. They were just coming out of the 80s and starting to rebuild as a powerhouse. And that line, I mean, you played with Johnny too.
It's unbelievable.
Man, that was just the Legion of Doom is exactly what it was. Like, and he could like turn it on and just skate through everybody. And you just get out of the way because you'd bounce off him and stuff at that time. But he was a specimen, man. Like, total picture, full 6'4", like jacked, 235, 8% body fat, and like a beast, man. Like, and he was out for those concussions and stuff like that. It's a shame, Like, he probably could have been one of the greatest that ever played, 'Cause he was
it's funny you played
big of a player.
You played with a few of those guys. John Leclerc, I played with Johnny. Peckerhead. Did you call him Peckerhead?
No.
Peter
No,
Svoboda. We called him Peter Svoboda was Peckerhead. And obviously I played with Bees in New York. But the Peckerhead, he was, could you believe how skinny he was and he actually played in the NHL? That kid was so skinny. When he came in, 18, he was 17 when he came over. Like, I couldn't believe how
Built
small
like
he
a
was.
10-year-old boy.
Oh,
Yeah. Built like a 10-year-old boy amongst monsters at that time.
and he was a tough kid. He played tough for his size, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember him. I just always remember him. He had the shoulder that just
Yeah.
looked like it was hanging there all the time. I'm like, what is
Who
that?
is this?
He's just like,
Peter
nothing.
Svoboda. His
Svoboda,
shoulders
tough
went
as
down
nails.
like this. Yeah, but he was a tough kid for his size. Fridge.
Yeah.
All right, so the fight game, like we hear it all the time, and I've been asked this. I loved what I did. I absolutely loved being there for my teammates. I love fighting. I could sleep the night before a game. I could sleep the afternoon of a game. I hear guys that didn't like doing it. They had to do it. How about you? Did you relish that role, or was it something that kind of gnawed at you? You had to do it.
Well, no, I liked the attention you got from fighting, like from the guys, and I remember, like I didn't lose sleep. Like don't get me wrong, I got scared and I was full of fear and stuff like that. That's normal. But I had guys like Luke Richardson said something to me that just stuck, and it was like I don't know if he's like a psychological ninja with young guys, man. And he said, he goes, Don't ever worry about being scared. They're scared too. He goes, let that keep you sharp. Use that in your advantage because it just means you're ready. And like, I'm 20 years old and I'm getting ready. This is the first fight. And this is what he's saying to me. And all the guys are kind of rallying around me. Like Preems was there, are you going to fight tonight? And I'm like, yeah, like I was all ready for it because it was Rob Ray. It was actually Rob Ray. And I think it was just a good guy to go, like a gamer, good guy for me to go up against. He's kind of a middle heavyweight, but respectable, and he'll go anybody. And, it was kind of my first fight. So that's the first approach I really had from the support of the guys, and that really helped me. And I understood they respected it immensely as the role, and I was boisterous and young and like fired up to be in the NHL. I was a sixth or seventh round draft pick, man. Like, was not supposed to be there. Plus, I had a very trying rookie season, as you'd call it.
Well, not supposed to be there. What do you mean by that? Like, were you supposed to be drafted in the second round or first round or the seventh?
Yeah, well, yeah,
What?
and the I think I was actually ranked in the second round by the CHL, but I had some injuries and you know, I had some injuries and some other things going on. I was a bad kid. I did some stupid stuff, but like most of us do.
Hey.
Yeah, then I fell in the ranking. So it was.
hey.
I ended up going
I
sixth.
relate to zero of any of this stuff. Like, my fear was like.
I know.
not
Well,
turning
to
the
see,
buck
it
over.
was for me even getting drafted was like. I mean, when I was doing the testing, I was going with Scotty Hannon. He was like first round all the way, and here I am just schlubbing along because we're buddies, right? So I kind of bathed in his glory, but. I was around all those camps and doing the testing. The VO2 was started in Vancouver. They were starting to do it. So that's when that all started to happen, and the Wingate testing. But yeah, I got drafted by the Flyers. They picked me 7th round. But that, you know,
That's all you
I was supposed to go to the draft. And then my agent's like, yeah, you might as well just sit at home. So I just sat by the phone.
Well, don't
And
feel
didn't
bad.
go.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, I went to Finland. My agent was like, "You're never playing in the NHL. Let's try Finland." Like, that's actually what happened. But no, you talk about being. You know, I have so much respect, obviously, for the role you guys did. But you talked about fear, like that. I was just watching this Mike Tyson interview, and he talked about like he was scared. He admitted he's like, I was scared before every fight, you know. And he just said, but he knew his opponent was way more scared, so it was kind of funny. But I couldn't imagine doing what you guys did. You know, like you had to be. You probably were. There had to be fear, like every time, right?
Oh, I just think
Unless
that
you guys are just,
you're
like,
putting
complete
more on the
psychos.
line.
Maybe
Yeah,
you guys are- maybe
you're
you are.
putting more on the line. Yeah, don't get me wrong. The guys that are good at this are a little off. Like, hands down, we might just be, let's call it spirited. Like, that's what I like to say, or reckless, some might say, but I like to call it spirited. And we have, I don't know, I can speak for myself, but I did not like when guys messed with my players, right? I loved them a lot. I understood I was in the NHL partly because of them. And so if I was going to have any success at the winning like a level, I wasn't going to be a guy that was going to put the puck in the net. And I learned like you're as good as your teammates, and your teammates are as good as your weakest links. So I did everything I could with a limited set of skills, right, to provide the most amount that I could. And that was with my fists, and that was with intimidation and just raw and bridled emotion. Like, that's what I could provide, and that's what made me stick around in the game. So they taught me about fear and taught me about all those things to deal with. But I still enjoy doing it for them, because like that, I played a long time playing that role, and you don't do it if you don't do it the right way. You know, you don't show treat shots and you look guys in the eyes and you fight them and stuff, then you're gonna last, because you're gonna be an honest guy. So yeah, I had good veterans around me all the time.
Yeah,
So wait, how good did it feel though to score a goal? I mean, Nuck scored.
That was the
Nuck
best.
tells me about his 20-goal seasons all the time, but like, how good did? Honestly though, like
I never had 20. I was never gonna get, like, we got worse. Like, we got more role played. Like, I think when I came in, it was like the last of those role players. McGrath and myself, Boogie. Reeves might be a guy that hangs around, or Wilson, but these guys don't go through that gauntlet, right? Of fighting and stuff.
Well, yeah, I used to. I mean, honestly, and anyone can probably agree. Like when you guys would score a goal, it was like amongst the team, it was the greatest thing
goals.
to see. Like, you forgot already because there was not that many, or what?
Roenick loves He absolutely loved, and I think a lot of the guys do, because I mean, for us it's a rarity. Like for the role player, it's a rarity. But JR, I remember one guy, he's like, I love it when you score, Friggy. And I was like, I love it when you fight. And I think it's the same for the goal scorers. They get in a tilt, they're like, hey, how'd I do? I did good, right? I was like,
they come and ask you, how'd I do? Yeah, it's fine.
I did good, right, Friggy?
So
yeah, it's like when we get that goal, I like the guys that get excited for us. But I think every tough guy wants to be that rounded out player, 20 goal scorer, but you can't get lost in that, right?
Yeah, you
come in
can't,
a
or
crusher,
you'll get
you're a
lost
rusher,
quick.
You're turn into an usher.
Yeah, you said
yeah,
it.
you'll just not. Yeah, you can't go outside that role once you've been pegged for that, and then you just do it the best you can, and that's kind of your livelihood. You change like that, and they don't want that.
Well,
they never say it either.
Fridge, we both played for Coach Jacques Lemaire, right? And he was my favorite coach. Here's a guy who came to me once and said to me, you fight too much. And honestly, I was like, I don't trust this guy. What's he trying to tell? He said, you got to slow down with the fighting. You can play hockey. And he's giving me all this confidence. And I'm like, man, if I slow down, I saw it before. Guys go out the door. See you later. And I almost didn't trust him, but I stuck with it, and he worked with me. And I understand that you also played for him and liked him. What was it about him that you liked?
He was my favorite coach that I've ever played under. I wish I got to play under him more. And I think it was like that, like one of the first meetings I had with him. He's like, you remember Chris? He brought you up. Oh. Like he said, do you remember, Chris, I remember, you remind me of a guy, Chris Nyland. They used to call him Knuckles. That's what he said. And honestly, when Lemaire, like I knew Lemaire, he has 11 rings, man. Like I was in hockey's royalty, and he's comparing me to a guy who's, I honestly was like, yeah, man, that guy's wound up. I'm like that. Totally. Yep. You're onto something here. And then he's like, he said a lot of the same things. He goes, let's try and slow you down a little bit and get you standing still. Like he was the one guy that taught me you can be working harder than anybody on the ice just by standing in one position. Yeah. And he kind of was making a joke of it because it's really hard for me to stand in one position. But you're doing your job defensively by taking away lanes just by not moving. He goes, you start moving around, then you're opening everything up. Just stay there. I know it's hard for you. And the way he talked to you and the way he walked everybody through the game, the way he made skilled guys play like workers and workers played like skilled guys, the way he mixed them. And honestly, I think... Did
you also fear him? The guys fear him too? Like that?
No, because he loved you.
He was just honest. He was,
he loved he looked at the player as his son. Like he
treated you like a plant. He wanted you to grow, right? He watered you. He let the sunlight in.
He nurtured you as an athlete.
Yeah.
He knew what you needed. Each individual athlete. Like I played with Dimitra and Gaborik for a little bit there. And it was, even they accepted the way he was. And some guys are, I'm not saying these guys were like babies or anything, but they were not used to
skilled players had a tougher time.
They would skate more than the tough guys would.
Yeah. Skilled guys had a tougher time with Jacques, right? Because they had to play within the system.
Yeah.
Fridge. So Lemaire, we love him. We get it. Everybody is a tough guy. Mike Tyson said it until they get punched in the face. Okay? And and I watched these, and Tim watched me. I've seen them before, but I watched them again today. And Tim was here and Barry was here, and I actually get sick to my stomach watch. I do. It makes me cringe when I see another tough guy, something bad happen to him, and I get it can happen. Was the first one, you broke your orbital bone against Eric Cairns in the island. Then the boogeyman, you end up just shattered your face. I mean, I was sick to my freaking stomach watching it. And then the last one in New York with Orr, you got knocked out cold. And I saw you laying there on the ice, and your hands were up like this. And I'm like, man, I felt...
Good shot.
Yeah, it was like... So you go through these things, and people don't understand what a guy goes through when they're everybody's rah-rahing and they want you to win the fight, but they don't know what the fighter goes through. Those 3 injuries alone, after one of them, a lot of guys would have never been the same or would have packed it in. How the hell were you able to bounce back each time? First Karens, then you come back to the boogeyman, they rebuild your face, boom, you come back, and then you get knocked. Hello, how did you bounce back from that? That's difficult.
I don't know. I never looked at it like that. I mean, I knew they were injuries, but I guess I trusted the doctors, and I mean, it was my livelihood. And the first Karen's one, it wasn't. It was a break, but it was fixable and probably stronger after. And the guy that I had to do it, Dr. Guy Lanzi, he's the best. He was one of the guys that invented some of the zygomatic arch implants and stuff. So I asked him, he goes, like, am I still going to be okay? And he goes, you're doing what you do is bone on bone. It's going to break no matter what. So, but when it heals and you give it time, yeah, it'll be just as strong as it was. So I trusted these guys, and I mean, the true test is getting punched in the face.
Yeah, the physical part. That's the physical part. How about I'm saying the confidence part, the shaking your confidence, and how do I get back from that? How'd you dealing with it personally? Like, I get the physical part. You heal.
Yeah, but I didn't have a choice. If I wanted to keep playing, I couldn't show that was going to bother me. It was like, get back on the horse, and it's almost the crazier you were. They were like, they'd leave you alone, and they'd be like, no, this kid, keep him around, man. Like he'll do whatever, And I took a sense of pride in it for some reason, but probably, I mean, I was self-destructive at that point. Like, I was going after trying to stay in the game after those injuries. Well, I guess that would be the starting point of it. With the injuries, I obviously had surgeries and stuff, and that was a big one. But when I got hit on this side, this fight, I actually thought that I did pretty good in. Like, that's what's different. Like, I took one in it, and like, I knew something was off, but it didn't hurt that bad. Like, I remember hitting Karen, so the confidence wasn't down that bad, and I was just too dumb to probably realize how bad that injury was. But got it fixed, and then when Bugard hit me, though, that was something else, because I remember getting hit. I didn't get knocked out, and I remember the linesman telling me stay down, like he could see the face, and I knew as well that it was messed up, because you don't see as well out of the eye, and it wasn't like it was a swelling or anything or there was blood around it. It was like pressure pushing my eye to see, like, wall-eyed. It was looking somewhere else, and I went like this on my face and knew that I could tell where his fist had hit, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay down here. And then the linesman helped me up, and I knew that I had to go directly off because my face was broken. Like, you can tell when you get a good break. I don't know if anybody can tell as bad as this one, but it basically took this bone and just moved it all the way up to my nose and just blew out everything else that was in there. So my eye was saved.
Thank God.
But I mean, geez, how many plates I got put in there? Well, I think there's 12 in there now. Most of them were from the Bugard fight, and that's the one. Like, they do say, you'll change, and that was the one that changed me. Like,
are you better looking though? And how did it change you?
I don't know. You ask my wife; she thinks I know I look like a catcher's mitt in my face.
How did it change you? You said it changed you. How did it change you?
Well, you got to understand that at that time in my life, there was things that were different. Like, I had family, and I was married with kids, and it's like there's a lot more on the line, and it's I have to have longevity now, right? Because we're making the least amount ever, right? We still have to do stuff after the game. We still got to work and stuff. There's not many guys can just retire on what they earned, and I wasn't one for sure. So I needed to keep playing because I was still young at that time. I was in the prime, and had a couple good seasons. And I just took probably, I think it was, man, I don't even know when I came back. That whole season, that whole year after that injury, I getting traded back to Philly. And I mean, the doctor told my wife that my career is over, like while I was in the hospital. And I remember the guys coming to see me in the hospital, like Niedermeyer was with Anaheim at that time. And they just said, like, you gonna be okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna play in a bit. Like, I'm gonna see how fast. This is just broken bones.
It'll heal.
My
It'll
body
heal.
and everything is still okay. I can play still. I'm gonna see how quickly I can come back. Put me in a cage. Like, that was my mentality. And people were like, yo, man, you gotta seriously consider, retiring. And it didn't cross my mind at that moment, even with that bad of an injury. So I don't know, whatever. It turned out, I guess, okay, because I still kept playing. But then again, yeah, I got hurt again. But again, like, even when I was trying to come back, like, the mask came off, guys were like, when I was asking them to go, they were just,
They didn't want
like,
they didn't want to hurt you.
Yeah, they were just like,
well, that's a good
you
point.
sure, man?
I was
Like,
gonna ask that. Like, you talked about the rah-rah, and I've been around this, right? Like, I can't relate and be in your shoes, but like, it probably, you didn't really want to see someone get really hurt, right? Like, when you were, you're talking about the receiving end, but like, I'm kind of asking both you guys, like, when you really, really hurt someone, that probably didn't feel. I mean, you kind of were concerned, right? Or did any of these guys like check how you were? Like, were you okay? Like, say, like the Colton Moore one, or,
yeah, all of them.
Yeah.
Bugs checked in on me, even Orr did. Like, that's the thing. Like, we have an understanding, right? And part of that understanding is if I break your face, that's going to prevent me from fighting again. You're right. And the ultimate goal for the fighter is to be like, listen, stop playing that way, or it's go time. And there's no question about it. And then you don't do it in a disrespectful way, but that's like the ultimate goal, right? You carry the presence and you don't have to say a word, right? But guys just play the game the right way. They don't mess around. They don't chirp. They stay within the lines. They play hard. And like, that's the ultimate role of the enforcer at the peak. But yeah, you break a guy's face, man, your stock goes up. So that's the understanding. And yeah, you do feel bad. Like, I've done it to a couple guys, and you feel bad when they go down. But again, you have that understanding when you come in that way. Like, I came in putting guys down, you go out that way too. And I like the way, I like that there's some kind of karmic beauty to that, I guess, because I still needed the shot from, come on, how the hell do I not remember his name? Buffalo.
Rob Ray.
Razor, man. There you go. That's one of the byproducts of fighting for 10 years.
Gilney?
No, that's age. That's
Yeah,
just
right. Yeah, that's age. Yeah.
Now, how do you feel about fighting today, and then how the game's kind of, obviously evolved?
I don't think it's in there. I think it's just kind of around. I think it's picked up a little bit, but I don't necessarily know if the guys understand what they're doing, right? It's just like slapping games. I think there's a couple guys that know how to play the role, or they understand it, but it's non-existent from the element of every team needs, that element of in the game. I think teams just, it's still there because the game is always going to have that, I think. At least I don't like to see it go away, but I don't see it in the same way as it was.
We're in conversation with former NHLer Todd Fedoruk, played with the Flyers, Anaheim, fought a whole lot, obviously. And Todd, when we talk about the fight game and all that, does have some negative consequences down the line. I know you haven't been shy to share your story, but you got to a point where you had to self-medicate. And, that culture, I grew up in the culture of drinking. National Hockey League, after every practice we were out drinking. Every game we'd go out and drink. That was a way to unwind and cool down. And I didn't recognize it till my career was over. When did it become an issue with you, and how did you address it? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, no, I'm open about mental health issues and stuff. I think it's if you have a platform like a professional athlete, former professional athlete, but you should. It's a thing to smash the stigma, and it's okay, right? Like you can ask for help and whatnot. But I like to tell a little bit of my story, but it didn't really start from hockey. I think hockey added to it. Some of the pressures and things like that kind of helped the progression. But it was when I first started. I guess you'd call it introduction to alcohol. You're in your teenage years, but some of the lifestyle of fighting at that young age and being alone, and it all adds to it, man. And I think I was just alone a lot as a young kid, and the guys you look up to or that are your father figures or the GM and the coaches and stuff. So you're lacking true guidance. And my parents were good and great, but again, like I was reckless, and I made some reckless choices, and it got out of control by the time I was starting to be a professional, right? So it's by the time I was in my 20s, that's when it was the worst for me, and I had no clue, right? Like I was approached by somebody in the game actually, and then I was able to straighten out. So I went away for treatment and figured out what was going on. I got a lot of answers that I needed to that I was always asking myself. So and it's an amazing journey because you don't know what's going on. You think nothing's going wrong, but you kind of do. Like in the back of your head, I do feel a little different. I do feel a little off. I don't quit. Why am I in the heart of a team here? But I don't quite feel like I'm part of the team, right? Outside looking in type of stuff. So, and I turned to substances to manage that and I guess deal with it. And it progressed into something where that's all I was doing. And my career and everything that I had, wanted to do in the hockey in my life, it was my life. It was going down the drain. So, thank God I was with some people were put in my life that got me the right kind of help. And I needed professional help, right? I needed to go away to a treatment facility and really wrap my head around what was going on and how much danger I was in from some of the things that I was putting in my body. And this is all at 20 years old. So, but the beauty of straightening one's life out is, that second chance. If you have, the chance to go after it again, you go after it with everything. And I did that, and ended up playing in the NHL that year. So, I think it's directly related to that. I know it is directly related to straightening things out, getting sober and living that way. And, but it wasn't always easy, and it didn't always stay that way. This thing, the disease or whatever you want to call it, the mental health issues, and there's different concepts of addiction and substance use disorder. And, I just like to party, man. Like at the end of the day, I just didn't understand why nobody else did, and I was alone. So, what I had found was something that worked for me. And, it's something I deal with on a daily basis moving forward, but going through the journey and having a lot of people around me, and then hockey was right there with me too. Like, you don't necessarily, you always hear about the horror stories of players or athletes that, the fall from grace, but you don't hear about the comebacks as much as you should.
Did you play most of your career sober?
Well, the thing was, the start of my career, that's my whole reputation was built on not only that, but it was, why wouldn't you want that in your locker room? And like I exuded it. I loved it. I loved being sober. I loved being, I felt unique. Especially in the locker room, because it's a bunch of guys, and the guys, like, you got to understand, the guys were very, very inviting of that, and they always looked out for me. They understood when it was time for me to go. It was time for me to go, because the bonding and stuff that these guys do, you're around it all the time. So they were respectful, and I really appreciate my teammates. And I was a rookie at this time, so it's just,
that's insane.
They were special, man. Yeah, they were special. So I tip my hat to those guys and how they managed a 20-year-old kid that was just coming off a hell of a run, and playing in the NHL and being a fighter too at that time.
No.
So I tip the hats to the veterans.
God
for that
bless you.
stuff.
And I say that because when I look back at my career, boy, the drinking was such a big part, but it helped me after games deal with that, when your hands are killing you and you're like, whew, you kind of had enough. And boy, I self-medicated. It helped me big time. So when I look at what you have done as a player, but getting sober, like I cannot picture myself being a sober man playing hockey. I just can't. And I wasn't. And that, I guess when I look at it, I just find it incredible that you were able to pull that off.
Well,
and
change
your life.
Real
I was
quick,
in and out.
my question, I heard your story, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I apologize if I'm wrong, but like, did you end up having a setback throughout your career where you went back to?
Yeah,
So
so-
I didn't know. I just want to make sure. Like,
When I went to Anaheim, like that's when it really started, and it honestly started with pills. I got hit by Jeff. I think it was Jeff Fisher at Ottawa. I gashed my eyes bad, and this was when I was just before the summer of getting traded, and I took Percocets for that injury, and that's something that's that woke up something that I wasn't ready to have awoke, and it didn't happen right away. It didn't happen right away, but over time, I just made some choices that were just absolutely insane, and for like probably 6 years after that, it was like I was seeking help on my own, and then having bouts of time with no booze, no drugs and stuff like that, and then but then falling off the wagon, and it progressed, and it progressed to the end in Tampa, and thank God I was kind of given another second chance, like. But the thing was, this time around, it was like a humbling experience that I'm even still alive, and that the family wasn't as damaged as it was, I guess. But I do things today to try and make up for that, and it's not like I have to. It's the right thing to do, and that I went back to what had got me help the first time. I called a couple guys from the league, and they got me into the treatment program, and again picked myself up and went after it again.
Well, the seed was planted obviously young, and God bless you for things and the way things are today, I guess, all you've been through. And you mentioned family. Like, we often don't talk about this, but I think back when I played, I didn't think about what my wife thought or my kids, or I just did my job, and I was out self-medicating all the time. How difficult, for your wife to go, and you have 3 children, right? How difficult was that for your wife?
Well, that's the thing that a lot of people don't see, how much the families of the player they sacrifice for us, right? Like, it's a very selfish role, the athlete in any sport, I think, because you eat, sleep, and everything is fueled around the athlete and their responsibility, and the families just kind of get drug around everywhere, and for me, that's what happened a lot, like with my family moving around a lot, and they just couldn't get settled. So you don't ever hear about that stuff, and it's not necessarily the glorious side of being a professional athlete. The families take a beating, and they move around a lot, and to have this added to that, and still have a woman that's as strong as my wife is to stick and stay, because the kids at those times, they don't have their fathers either when you're playing. There's a lot of commitment and time that you're on the road. So when the kids are young, they need their papa, and they need their, they need the family people around. But you don't get that luxury as a young hockey player if you've got young kids and stuff. They kind of have to go through that too. And some guys like it. The kids like it. They get to go to the games and stuff. But I just think that it can weigh a lot, if you got to move around. So I tip my hat to all the wives of guys like myself, but even just the athletes' lifestyle. It's you got to move a lot, no matter what. You're going to get traded. It's very rare that you get to spend your whole career with one team, but yeah, you never hear about that. And you know
That
what?
end of it.
It's been 12 years now, and you know it's rocky, but she's still one of the greatest mothers and one of the greatest wives. Like, she is the greatest wife for me, man. I don't want to start messing up and talking about her. She'll get mad at me, so you'll have to edit this out.
Wait, your wife gets mad too? Your wife gets mad too?
She's just like, I've heard it, I've lived it. I don't need to hear it. You know what I mean? She's never satisfied, and that's good, because we gotta continuously become better versions of ourselves, regardless of the past we have. It's just a better way to live, and she lives that way. You know, like she eats right, she does everything right, and it's almost annoying. You know,
And it's rubbing off on you.
Yeah, it's rubbing off on me. I don't mind it, right? She's got good standards, so I got to live up to them.
No, that's awesome.
It's a good partnership.
You can hear how you can hear the honesty in that and what that means to you. And I think, you know, I had some, you know, personal issues myself, but I think that's the biggest difference. Taking care of myself is like what I care about. Like the fact, what you're saying about your wife is like me and my wife, same kind of. She was ride or die, and she's still with me, and we're probably the best we've ever been. But it's because the things that matter today, right? Like I'm kind of working continuously on trying to get out of my own way. But I appreciate you sharing, what that means to you, because that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be able to do a lot of the catching up, you know, from the time in the career and the things that I've done. So it's good to be present today.
So, Fridge, how about the transition? The game's over. Boom. I struggled with it. I had a difficult time. How about yourself? Now you're working in mental health. You work with New Life Medical and Addiction Services. And how's that been for you, like your second career?
Well, it's been, you have to kind of leave the nest. Like I was in Philly, there's a lot of opportunity on the East Coast, but in this area, there's a lot of players that stick and stay in the region. My wife's from this region too. She'd obviously love to live in Arizona, don't get me wrong, but there's opportunities here, and the Flyers kind of gave me a shot to get into the business side of it, you know. So I kind of followed myself around, but then you'll only go so far, and I wanted to see what I could, see what I could do in business and stuff. And you leave the nest, but I learned from hockey, the network is potent. Like it's what we can do with each other, like what we're doing now. There's guys that are doing successful things that are, it's never been a guy that I'd call in the NHL that played I couldn't rely on for an introduction to somebody. So, I did some stuff in oil and gas, and then just moved around in business, and then got into New Life, because obviously, being a guy that lives in recovery and does that, it wasn't something I sought out to do. It just kind of happened through COVID, and the opportunity presented itself, and I was looking to get involved with the NHL and do some things just from I guess like a regional perspective.
Yeah.
Be a kind of a peer coach or something like that for players in recovery or dealing with mental health and stuff like that. It's a good resource to have, but it kind of morphed into meeting Dr. Joseph Savon and Joel Albano, the founders of New Life. And they were helping people like me. So I kind of fell in love with the guys and their mission and what they really want to do. They use medically assisted treatment for the opioid crisis right now, and it's good because it's all about accessibility, right? They want to make outpatient mental health and substance use disorder accessible to everybody. So we kind of have a model that works and fits, and we're having some success, and people are getting better, and families are getting happier, and I enjoy it. I would have never imagined it was as rewarding as a job, but it's hard work and takes a lot of time, and but I enjoy doing it. So, and there's a great team there, like the clinicians, and Ryan McGuckin's got the team going on, and that's the key.
Good
These
stuff.
guys, the therapists do a really good
How
job.
long you been
They're
retired?
the ones that do it. What, I think it's 12 years.
So,
now. 2011, 2010.
So what were those first few years like, the transition? Because speaking of like, that's important for me because I feel like I'm still transitioning. Like,
It takes like 5 years.
Yeah, clearly I just flew to Pittsburgh to talk to you on this shitty podcast on a computer. So clearly I'm just trying. My life is I'm just whatever.
Hey,
no, I'm just kidding.
hey.
But no, seriously though, it's like almost.
It takes risk.
No, and it's like
you gotta
it's almost
take
like with
risk.
you have to come to the mindset of like hockey. It doesn't have to define you. Like I'm grateful for the career, and there's a lot of tools, and I want to give back. And like you said, talking to teammates or just old teammates is like the best conversations. But it's really just like I don't have to be just this hockey player, and that's I'm slowly kind of getting through that still. It's like sometimes I feel like this is all I have. I only played hockey, but I mean that's kind of like what you got to do is just kind of release that identity almost. It's like doesn't define you, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm just kind of.
No, that's exactly. I mean, that's all you've ever done. That's all we've ever done. We're told what to do our whole lives, and then it stops, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you got to fend for yourself kind of and flounder for a bit, but then eventually you just get fed up and you're like, man, if I could do this, and don't get me wrong, there's veterans still. There's veterans guy, Timmy Kerr, Don Slesky. These guys are in this area and they're like, look, man, you could be successful putting the amount of work in and applying yourself the way that you did to be successful in the NHL. You can apply that to anything in life and be 10 times successful as the average Joe. Like, so it's just about transferring, the work ethic and, all that into something you want to do. Now, you'll never find something as passionate as what you did playing hockey, but you can't ask for that twice in life, man. Like, we got paid some good money to play that game, and it was fun the whole time. Like, it was a special time in my life, but you can get involved and do stuff, but you got to take some risk. That's the thing. You got to take some risk if you want a little bit of reward, and you got to be willing to work. And it's tough.
And it's crazy because like we all come from like what people don't sometimes realize too. Not that they should, but like we failed a lot, right? Like in our hockey careers, and then like now I'm afraid to like try anything because I don't want to fail. But but the truth is like you said. I'm just glad you said 5 years because I'm on like 4. If you would have said like 2, I would have just left. But I appreciate you saying 5.
No, it takes time, man. Yeah. You got to find out what you want to do,
Fridge, the NHL, right? We always under scrutiny, right? The concussion issues, fighting, drugs, whatever, drinking over the years. I found that when I was at my lowest, the NHL was there for me in such a big way. And I don't think, that gets exposed as much. And not that it should, but they've really, when I was down and out in Beverly Hills, they stepped up to the plate and really helped me in a big way.
100%. That's what, part of this is like there's a choice that each of us has to make. And, I like to call some of those guys the thread. They're constant, but that's a lot of people call. You'd be surprised, but having the resources and then doing the things that they say, they're not there to hurt you. And I knew that right away. It was just they know what it's like and they help you get what you need. And thank God it's a resource that runs the way it does. And not every case turns out, with a great comeback. Sometimes people die, but that's not necessarily the nature of the help they're getting. It's the nature of this affliction, right?
Yep.
Opioids and addiction and use disorder kill millions of people every year, and it's getting worse. So people really have to understand this, smash the stigma, reach out for help. Like that's honestly the only thing you can really do. But the league was there.
You talked
for
about
me
passion, doing something passionate as hockey, but like I think I know the answer to this, but obviously it's amazing what you're doing today. But like you talk about like what you got from a fight or from a goal. I mean, just to be available to help somebody, like that's got to be. I mean, what's that feel like for you? Is that more self-fulfilling than probably any of it, right?
Yeah, I never signed up for that.
Right?
I didn't sign up for that.
No, I get that. I know you're not doing that, but you know what I mean. Just to be available.
No,
right?
I know. I I'm saying it because I like, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know how rewarding it would actually be. Like, it's different because there's a medical procedure that needs to happen for a lot of these people, and that's early stage, and then the medicines that we use, we taper, so we get them to sober, and it could be the first time in years that these people are starting to feel again, and it's to see them smile and to see them actually genuinely smile and be like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I forgot what smiling actually did.
Or being
and it's
happy.
Yeah, it's man, we forget about that. So on the surface, like, if you know me, I'm like an ultra happy guy. Like, it just, if you're around me, you're buzzing because I'm.
He doesn't come across
I get
like
to
that,
do
does he?
this stuff, and
No, you don't come across
You
as
seem
happy.
like
Fred.
kind of
Yeah.
quiet. Yeah.
oh, but I just no. I like talking to people when they're coming alive again, and like I was one of them too at one time in my life. So to do it and kind of start them on this journey, or send them off to, whatever form of long-term recovery it is. It's a very rewarding thing, but you got to be responsible, man. Like I do some things just out of
Yeah, you're not
passion.
perfect.
Aren't necessarily smart,
And the
Like,
thing
I'm
is
coming
like,
to get you, right?
No, and the
No,
thing
you
is
can't
though,
do
like,
that.
you're not doing it. People can, like, on the outside looking in, could like look at it like, oh, he's trying to like save the world, and it's like, no, you're not. You're just
Nah.
trying to do what was given to you, and that's like the only way to do it is with like another human being. Like, you can't do this alone, right? So
Yeah,
it's
providing
it's,
a place to go.
Exactly.
Yeah, someone's got to run these places, man. Someone's got to do stuff to provide the place to go to get these things started.
Well, God bless you for the work you do, Fred. You're awesome. You're a good man. I appreciate you taking the time today. Before I let you go, though, I have a couple quickies.
This is before he lets you go. Before I let you go,
Yeah.
I got a question too.
Yeah.
Do you have any regrets?
Well, you can't, because I've learned that every little thing along that journey is part of what I am now. So to say I had regrets of the things that I had done, I can't regret them, right?
Yeah.
But if I would have done them another way, I don't know. No, because where I am today is because of all those, a lot of those things. And
Yeah, you
can't
talked about the
forget, you gotta
present,
take the good with the bad.
right?
Yeah,
The
you gotta
present.
take
So like,
the good with the bad.
if you're
Yeah.
meaning like if you truly mean that, like living in the present, like you kind of look at everything happen for you, not to you, right? Like, it's like you can't look back and be like, hey, I wish this changed. You're like probably the best version of yourself right now, right?
Yeah, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become.
That's awesome. I got a
Carl
question
Jung.
from this. We have one crazy fan. He's our producer.
We always got that crazy fan question.
Well, yeah, he said you have two guinea pigs named Joe, Kosher, and Bob Probert. Why? This is the question. Why?
I gave them that name. Their real names are actually Max and, oh my God, I can't even
Knuckles
remember
and
those
Tim.
names. Yeah, Max and Gus. But no, I give them the nicknames Joey Kosher and Bob Probert because I love those guys, and I was playing, and they fight. I had to separate them. Like, you can see the cage in the between.
Oh, yeah.
They're in
I had to
jerseys.
put that in there. I built that during COVID for my girls, and my wife loves them too. She loves animals, my wife, and
They got masks on.
But- no, but when it was,
Do you
when
ever
it was
think of
COVID
getting a
and I was
dog?
building that. It
Oh,
was
you have a
like
dog.
helpful. I got 2 French bulldogs. Yeah, they go crazy when they come in here. These things stink though.
Do
That's
you
the
ever,
problem.
do you ever look at people and they look like their dog? Do you ever?
No.
It's unbelievable. No.
Oh yeah.
Like, people
No,
look like
yes.
their dogs, right? Like,
Yes.
honestly,
yeah.
Jamie,
Some guys, yeah.
I have the Saint
He
Bernard,
has
right?
an Asian dog. Is that what you're doing?
No, my eyes go down like the scar tissue over them,
Yeah.
and she says I look like the Saint Bernard. I don't know.
I hope I don't look like my Frenchies, man. My Frenchies got a smashed in face. I might look like them,
Right.
Yeah. My face is smashed in.
No.
Fridge, I personally, I obviously appreciate your time, but I'm blessed, and I mean this, that I've been able to cross paths with you, man. Like, it's awesome to be able to just hear your story and hear the person you become, and it's inspiring. So I thank you.
Oh man, it's lucky I met you too, bud. It's all because of COVID too. Like it's cool because a lot of us got together. It was neat. Old guys, new guys, yeah.
Oh yeah, Fridge. Okay, we got one more here.
Yeah, this is the
Crazy fan again. Crazy fan.
We've been trying to cancel this part of our show, but
Yeah, crazy fan pot. What would be the first line of your hockey eulogy?
Oh jeez.
This is the crazy fan.
What would be the first line of
Yeah,
hockey
hockey
eulogy?
You.
How the fuck did we end up here? Yeah, I think that's what it would be. How the fuck did I end up here? Yep.
Well,
I honestly, that's what comes to mind.
Well, it all started back in Redwater, Alberta,
Yeah.
and now you're in Philly, and you're sitting here with Whitey and Knuckles. How's that for a pair? And again, we appreciate your time today. You've been awesome. Love you, pal. Awesome.